All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera, and we are back at it with the live discussions with Diamond podcast on this amazing Sunday afternoon in New York City. And everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. And honestly, today's interview for me is a very, very long time coming. A person I've admired for so many years, from his work in London to now his work in Paris. And this gentleman here, his career spans honestly over 2 decades. His influence to me is truly noted, and our conversations pre-hand is just for me to give him appreciation, love, and understand that his contribution to the dance world is truly valuable. And honestly, we have the pleasure here at the podcast of having the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Leon Rose.
What's up? What's up? What's up? How we
Uh,
doing?
Well, we're doing great, man. Honestly, Leon, I wanted to thank you so much for coming onto the platform today. Having you on, like I said, is really a pleasure being able to have you and have you tell your story, but also, most of all, just appreciate your contribution.
Just one thing is my picture frozen.
Yeah, it looks a little frozen, but we can still hear you, so don't worry about that. That's we'll try to get that set up and situated. But I mean,
It looks like I'm not paying attention at all. I am. I am. I'm really.
wait, let's see if we can just try to take you over and bring you back on. Let's see. And hold on 1 second. We'll definitely get that situated. Are you able to hear us right now?
I can hear you.
Perfect. So while we get that situated, trust me, as right now we know you are in Paris, France. Am I correct?
Hey, you are absolutely correct.
And I mean, of course, once we get that scene set up, we do know right now we'll give the audience a little bit of understanding. You got some nice green foliage background behind you. Am I correct?
I do. You know what I'm gonna do? I know exactly how to do this. I'm gonna re- I got so creative with the camera. I set up my camera, but apparently it doesn't work.
It's all good.
I
Oh wait,
spent yeah,
look,
I s- I
I
s-
think you look great.
I spent all this money on a camera and it doesn't.
Hey, and I thought you were pulling a prank of the comedic approach because we know not just as an instructor choreographer, you're also a comedian as well. But hey, the fact that we have you here, just being able to talk and communicate, is gratifying enough.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here, man.
Listen, man, the pleasure's all mine. As we've talked as well, I'm realizing how far your career has spanned. Many people might have seen your performances in Switzerland and different parts of the world as of recent years. But for me, even talking with you, giving you flashbacks of even
Oh my
back to
gosh.
2005, I mean, when you had the afro, I still remember those times.
Oh
So
my god. The afro.
and for me, Leon, having this platform means a lot to me because as a dancer since the mid '90s, and now in 2022, being able to have artists like you come on and share your stories is important because I've seen through COVID many of artists that we have seen, know even personally, are maybe not in the same capacity in this community. So
Such a shame. Such a shame. Yeah.
being able to share their stories, appreciate them is the most, for me, I needed to do that because I felt a lot of stories would get lost. But having a person like yourself on means a lot because watching you from being a spectator to now actually having this one-on-one conversation is special because hey, in our communities, we know we go to an event, we teach a workshop, we're just moving and grooving. We got sometimes we don't have those moments to just have these type of combos.
Yeah, it's like a train station, right? It's like we're passing in ships in the night. That's what we are.
Absolutely, but I mean, most of all, too, I appreciate is actually talking to an artist from the other side of the world. I know many people from the States, but being able to talk to a person like yourself, whose career has spanned so many years, from you on the state side, but also on the European side, I know you have a wealth of knowledge for sure.
I've been around the block, as they say in the UK.
I mean, trust me, we'll definitely get into that and understand it because we may get into the London style of salsa and your workshops throughout the years. But one thing I can say is the creativity is seamless because in our communities, I think you've noticed we've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of shows. A
Yeah.
lot of times, it's hard for artists to really make a name for themselves when there's so much variety. But seeing your work, especially one of my favorite performances, Hybrid, I think that was in 2019, 2020, right
Yeah, that was
before
the
the
last. Yeah, yeah, the last one before the COVID. Yeah, that was something very different.
Yeah,
It-
and I mean, it looked different. It looked like it was intriguing. It was engaging with the audience, and that right there was a representation of, hey, there still is creativity and individuality in the routines nowadays.
yeah, I was talking to somebody today about it, and they were saying that it's so difficult to create, and I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I just gave a very simple example because when I'm choreographing a routine, I always say to myself, okay, say I take a section of music. I say, what's the first thing that you would do? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Mhm.
And usually the first thing that comes to mind is something that we've probably seen somewhere,
Yeah.
don't know where, but we've probably seen it, and we put that in the choreography. What I always do is throw the idea away and go with the second
Mhm.
idea. And hopefully the second idea is original.
I appreciate that because you know what it is we can get motivation and understanding from others that are in our world, and
Yeah.
sometimes that can be convoluted or an issue or conflict of interest because sometimes the people you admire, you may not realize you're almost mirroring them, and that right there can be an issue sometimes.
Yeah, that happens. That happens to everybody. It's just human nature. We see things and we get an idea, right? Like I remember choreographing routines in the way that I thought everybody expected me to choreograph routines.
Hmm.
And then the day that I actually realized that is the day that I changed and started doing something different and started just experimenting and seeing what happens. I already kind of had a name for myself, so I could kind of play with what I was doing and who I
Mhm.
was doing it with, you know. But it's difficult, especially if you're starting now and you try to do something completely different. Everybody's going to be like, "Hold on, who are you and why are you
Yeah.
doing this?"
I mean, hey, I mean, nowadays people have to, because again, as we've talked as well, in this social media world, because
Yeah,
again, I remember a time that, and we talked as well, there was only Nuevo Tech. It was
yeah.
only specific, I mean, unless somebody took their camera phone and filmed a really grainy video of you dancing,
I
they were,
Mambo too.
yes. And the thing is, it's interesting because there was a time that me and you remember when you couldn't film, or there was only a film crew that could film this
Yeah,
Congress, and that was the only way you were able to see it if you weren't there.
and you had to buy the video cassette.
That is true, and but for me as well, appreciating what you've done currently and throughout the years, I think it's important understanding how it started. So, kind of give me and the audience an understanding of how did Leon Rose become to be, or how did the dance world fall into your lap per se?
Well, that was 1997, I believe, in London. It's my mom that took me to my first salsa club,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, let me test this thing out. And just walking into that club, I was talking to somebody about that today about that first moment. Everybody has that first moment where they kind of fall in love, even if they've had
Mm.
years of dancing or whatever. But there's always a moment that you say, yeah, I want to learn this and I want to really get deep into it. And that day was me walking into a club called Villa Stefano. And I just remember it was down in like a basement. You walk in there, there's people spinning around, the heat
Mhm.
hit me. And I was like, wow, what is this? And then like that night, some girl asked me to dance. And I was like, what? They asked me to
Mhm.
dance. And I didn't know what I was doing. She said, don't worry, I'll lead you. It was a merengue.
Okay.
I didn't
Oh.
even know. And like we was dancing, I was like, okay, I need to do some classes. And so from the next week I was doing classes, and I just went for it. I
Mhm.
found myself a dance partner, and we would just practice and make up moves. And we was in the kind of habit back in those days is to create all the time, like
Yes.
always make up something new. So I was always doing that, always dreaming of moves and couldn't wait to test him out on my dance partner on the dance floor. And we'd have like little battles between like me and Super Mario after a couple of years of us dancing.
Oh, the one and only Super Mario for sure.
Yeah, we like challenge each other. What move you got today? And I would always like my shoulders were so flexible. I could do these moves that he would never be able to do. So I always had something up my sleeve.
Oh my God, that's interesting. And as well, we got a big shout out to Alejandro De La Torre, all the way from the West
Oh,
Coast, giving a big shout out to Leon. And hey, listen, people like you and Super Mario, many people who can see the visuals now understand. But for a person like myself growing up and being able to see you guys, if not physically, but at least through videos and having that moment, I mean, was special because, like you said, back in those days, and I think when we'd say words like that back in those days, people would just say like, "Whoa, those must have been years ago." But again, those years were valuable. Those years helped this community grow because that creativity was there. I mean, people like yourself, people like Shaka Brown, people like Super Mario, Santorico, Yamule. The list goes on. Tropical Gem. I can keep going. Realizing you guys were the predecessors, those pioneers allowing that creativity to flow. Because if everyone did everything the same way, where would we be right now?
yeah, definitely. There was an explosion, I think.
Mhm.
Like the people that came before me, before, because I kind of studied in the year of the first Congress. I think, what year
Wait,
was
so around
Puerto
like
Rico?
2000, maybe one, no, 1999, I believe.
Okay, so around about that time, I was doing like little competitions in the UK, and
Mhm.
like my first ever show was like on this big stage, this big theater that's like well known. It was crazy. My first ever time
Mhm.
performing anything, and I'm on stage in front of like 6,000 people or something like that. Um, but yeah, those days there, we had to go for it, man. We had to just study and create and do what we can to learn. There was no YouTube, there was nothing. Everything had to come from where we were.
Yeah, no, it's true because again, before the pre-YouTube days, I mean, when you wanted to create something, you had to be really, and I keep using the word creative, but you had to really showcase your individuality because it's nowadays in YouTube you can just search videos and find that inspiration, but back then it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I remember going to New York back in the days. I'll go to Nelson Flores's class, and
Mm,
I would learn one of his routines, and that routine would last me a whole year because I would create something from that because I didn't have the ability to go to regular classes over there, so I had to like come up with something. And the thing is, I always thought that we was doing exactly the same thing, even though we're creating stuff. I thought we were
yeah,
doing the same thing, but you could kind of see how the styles kind of separated slightly.
yeah,
There's yeah, it's like language. Over the years, when you're doing it on two different continents, it changes.
absolutely.
There's a common there's common ground, obviously.
Yeah, and but what's fascinating to me was that the same subjects or the same conversations I have with people overseas is the same in the states in the sense that what happens is many people from the states are fascinated by the other side of the world, and a lot of times the Europeans are fascinated what
Yeah,
happens on the state side. So when those two worlds mesh, I believe that was beautiful because,
yeah,
like you said, '99 Baca League Salsa Congress in Puerto Rico was that first initial Congress. There might have been venues and events pre-hand, but that event, I believe, was the culmination of all right, things are changing. But of course, as well, the year 2000, where it's a new century and things are evolving with internet and such. I think that was the groundswell. So for me, a question I have for you is you making those initial treks and journeys to the state side, but
mm.
specifically New York. For you, what was that like being a man from London, traveling to New York, and what was those experiences like for you?
Wow. Traveling to the States was quite big. The first time
Mhm.
I ever went stateside to perform, it was actually in Puerto Rico. Uh, in 2000, me and my dance partner Susanna Montero, we
Yes.
won this competition in the UK, and the prize was for us to go and perform in Puerto Rico.
Mm,
And the routine that we did was the vampire routine, where I came
yeah.
out dressed as a vampire. She was on stage. I covered her. I bit her on the neck, and then she transformed into a vampire. And then we just went for it. So we hadn't really seen. I hadn't really seen any themed routines before, like
Mm,
a theme from beginning to the end, where there's like a story, or you could see the relation. It's not just like a guy gives a girl a rose and the
yeah.
next minute they're dancing and then there's no relation to the story. So I wanted to do something with Susanna that would, because our styles were so completely different. We had to
Hmm.
do something that was, that could kind of stand out. So we
Yeah.
came up with this idea, and then we went over to Puerto Rico, and we was excited to perform over there. But then all of a sudden, we're seeing all these amazing performers from all over the states, like LA, New York, and these guys
Yeah.
doing flips and tricks. And we're like, wow, okay, are we in the right place? And then we performed the routine, and like the weirdest thing happened. Like after 20 seconds of the music, it was on a mini disc those days.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And,
We're taking it
and
back then.
yeah, and the music stopped dead in the middle of the show. As I
Oh.
walked out, dressed like a Dracula, and I just covered my face in the cape and I ran off the stage. And then they played the music again. I don't know how the music worked, and we did a whole routine. And at the end of the show, like I was feeling a little disappointed because I messed up a small part of the footwork. And
Mhm.
we were walking off stage, but we didn't realize that we were getting a standing ovation and everyone was calling us back out on the stage. And like when we walked outside, everybody was clapping and it
Mhm.
was slapping everybody's hands, high five. We was like, what the hell just happened here? So that was like our first real introduction to the States, and that kind of opened up so many doors. And I always tried to do something a little bit different because I knew how I dance was not like the LA dances, how I dance was not like the New
Yeah.
York dances. So I couldn't do what they do because you kind of have to be in the environment and to really do that. So I couldn't really imitate. So I had to do something slightly different.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say about themes because I think it was definitely after 2000 for me, I saw the shift. I saw the
Yeah,
theatrics and these routines coming about, whether it was yours, whether it was Owlick with Silva with cowboy routines,
yeah, yeah,
whether it was the LA groups doing the Matrix routines, just that new inspirational type of style was coming about because with the addition of more mainstream movies, I
yeah,
saw now artists like incorporating it. Some of them were great, some of them were like perplexing, but I was appreciating it because it was showing, okay, they can give an ode to the mainstream media, the mainstream movies, and make it make sense. As well, we got to
yeah.
give a big shout out to my boy Guy Lavelle out there in Florida saying, Leon, when are you coming back to the States and giving us a groovy cha-cha performance?
I'm definitely gonna be down in Miami at one point this year. I got one of my boys. He lives down there, so I'm gonna go and check him out. He just had a bike accident, so I'm gonna go and
Mhm.
slap some sense into him.
For sure, so Leon realizing, of course, we're giving really glimpses into your life and understanding that you towards the early 2000 making that journey to the States and feeling that inspiration there. So going through those years and being able to perform, but also as well on your side of the world, did you feel there was a difference between the states and the European side, like maybe the reactions, maybe just the culture in general when it came to dance?
When you're talking, were you talking about like performances, reaction to performances, or?
Performances, because as we've talked as well, I always had a feeling like the state side was so much more focused on the performance aspect,
Uh-huh.
and the Europeans were more focused on the educational, social dancing aspect. Did you feel
Okay.
maybe, yeah?
So I think European, because of like I was thinking about this in the States. there's schools everywhere.
Yes.
And the objective of a dancer is to really get to a performance group in most schools.
Hmm.
So at the end of it, you're going to go up on stage.
Yeah.
So that is the goal. So the fastest way to get to that point, you're going to take.
Hmm.
Yeah. Over in Europe, it's not necessarily people want to perform. There are performance groups, but it doesn't mean you go to a school and you're going to end up in a performance.
Mm.
You know, yeah, things are changing now. You know, there's certain schools that are adopting like the North American method, I would
Yes.
say, which I guess it comes from like the structure of ballroom and stuff like that. I think
Hmm.
so. Like, but over here, like in the UK, we wouldn't even think about having a performance group when I started. You
Hmm.
know, we talk about having a group. I would get like a good a group of good dancers. Will make a group and do something together, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. All my classes didn't lead up to that.
Mm.
So because of that, when people have done shows in Europe, they use the influence that they have. And I think in the States, they've done that in the past, and maybe they do that again. But like, for example, in Paris, you have like some high level hip hop dancers.
Oh yes. I mean the Les twins, if I have to be frank, one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah. So you have high level hip hop dancers that actually dance salsa as well. So you over the years you've seen like salsa hip hop performances. You have like jazz dancers that do salsa dancing, and you've seen that mixed up together, contemporary.
Yes.
And you know, like my dancers, all of them over the years that have danced with me in Paris, almost all of them have had some kind of training in something else, whether it's hip hop, whether it's jazz, whether it's ballet or contemporary. They've had something, you know, which is what I really appreciate because you can't find that everywhere.
No, absolutely. I mean, because I think it is important understanding the fusion
Yeah,
of our dance. Because I mean, you remember a time when it was just salsa music. It was just salsa
yeah,
dancing from beginning to from point A to point B.
yeah,
But over the years, that evolution of performances incorporating Afro-Cuban, incorporating jazz, incorporating hip hop, modern, contemporary, everything in between. For me, I love that because again, dance is a universal language. Of
yeah,
course, we have a salsa congress, but then there became times when some of the big acts were known to have fusion.
yeah,
And that was okay because you understood that those people who were using fusion respected the art of dance, but also were trained in it. And that also helped inspire a new generation of artists.
yeah, 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 definitely.
And so for me, a question I have for you then is, throughout the years, of course, going through, the 2000s, and then of course the big addition of more social media platforms and growing. How did you notice kind of an evolution of our community over the years through social media?
Well, because I come from that generation pre YouTube, we all hated YouTube when it came out.
Yes, yes,
Every one of us, from the States to Europe, everybody hated it because you know there were certain because we didn't have anything to create from, like
mm,
especially for me, like over in I didn't have anything to create from apart from the one or two classes that I took over in New York. I
yeah,
spent time on trying to make up something, trying to be original, trying to make up moves, spend hours in the dance in my apartment, hardly
yeah.
any space, knocking myself out because I was slipping in my socks, you know. Almost breaking my nose practicing moves. This is what I did. So for somebody to come and film it and then put it directly onto YouTube was hurtful. It's like,
Mm,
hold on, I just did this workshop. And I always used to, even you can speak to Mario. Mario say the same thing. Back in the days, me and him were some of the only people that would teach something new every weekend in every Congress.
mm,
Something new. If I ever saw someone like within a month of in my same workshop If I see them in the same places, I wouldn't have done the same thing. I would have never have done that. But I had seen certain other artists that were traveling all over as well, doing the same thing, which is fine,
Yeah.
you know. But for me, I took it as like it was hard for somebody to film what I was doing and then put it straight on YouTube. And I'm like, hold on, I get that's for free. Hold on, what's going on? But I do understand the use of
Yes.
social media now. It's taken me years to kind of accept it,
Hey, it's better late than never. I say that.
but I do understand. It is like in the beginning, I'm watching people putting their work
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, what? You didn't work and create blood, sweat, and tears for you to go and put it on for free, so somebody else can go and teach that. But I do understand how it works now.
No,
And
for sure. For sure.
obviously there are people out there that just learn everything from Instagram or Facebook
Yes.
and then go and teach it. That they would those are the same type of people that would come to your workshop and go and do it. The only thing I ask for, and I'm not only me, for anybody,
Yeah.
give recognition for
Thank
where you
you.
get it from. Give recognition. I talk about Nelson Flores all the time. I still use some of his moves, and now we've gone full circle where he's using my moves that I taught him.
But then that's the part of our community that it evolves over time. Evolution and change is inevitable, but it's how we interpret that change. Because I completely understand your premise of being from that era as well, younger, understanding the gripes that artists had with their work between like 2007 when YouTube was first starting, of saying,
Oh my
wait,
god.
I'm going to events and I'm teaching, I'm coming from all the way across the world, that people are paying to take these classes, and one person in particular is just filming this, posting it, not understanding what it means to me as an artist. But
Yeah.
then on the flip side, what happened was the explosion of that promotion. Then, in a ways, because I've talked to artists that they were the same ones saying, I can't believe this is happening. But over time, seeing the flip of, oh, now someone from across the world just saw me
Yeah.
and now wants to hire me. So it was that dichotomy of like the good and the evil, or the bad, the good and the bad, of like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not appreciating this, but over time, I'm seeing the benefits of this.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I did film. I did get some of my stuff filmed because there'll be stuff lost in the archives. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, we don't appreciate what it was then, but now we see it. But at the same accord, I think also, and I have to say, as a visual artist myself for over 5, 6 years, I have a different appreciation for artists like yourself and others that paved the way for what our community is now. Because as we've talked as well, for me, I think the people like yourself, Frankie Martinez, as well, really helped give that innovation of creativity and pave the way for artists to step outside of their box, because it's easy to look at a routine and find that formula. Because as we've talked as well, I knew there was a point in time where there was a certain style of dancing in our dance congresses that came around that was a great addition, but for a lot of acts it became the blueprint on
mm.
how to get that standing up. But then that blueprint, people started noticing this wasn't what you were doing before. So you're changing your style because you want to appease the audience, but then you are also losing who you are.
it's a vicious circle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not even a vicious circle. It's a cycle. It's just a cycle. We go through this. We started off with authentic salsa, then we got some hybrid versions of it, then we got like stuff thrown into it, and then people went back to the roots and went back to the afro, and then they went to the pachanga, and then they went to something else, and now you've got the influence of other dancers maybe doing every so often there's a group of dancers that influence everybody else, so everybody's trying to dance like them because that's the way that we see that we get that standing O. And that's what we all want when we're performing. Everybody wants that
Hey,
standing
no,
O.
nobody wants, and I tell people these stories, don't come, especially New York. People want a standing O, but you got to work for it. And the thing
Yeah,
is, I've seen people come from far in between different continents and countries and come to New York and think if I give a show or what I think is a show, that
yeah,
people are going to appreciate it. But no, I've seen people literally after a show, the audience is just standstill because you have to realize that that opportunity or responsibility that you have on a stage is more than just a trick you just did. We need
yeah,
to understand the context. But even here, guys saying, I still use material from Leon at his last visit to Capitol, thinking all artists, as he says, I think all artists steal from one another, but it's important to give that recognition because that's what's important. Because as we've talked as well, my biggest thing of creating this type of platform was I didn't want artists that I knew and I beloved for so many years to just be known from a visual, from a
yeah,
video, from a
yeah,
congress or a workshop. I wanted to have the opportunity to say, no, I got to speak to this artist. I got to connect with them and tell them how much I appreciated their work because a lot of artists who travel the world for decades on end, a lot of them have that same notion of not feeling appreciated, not feeling recognized. Some people even moving from their hometown to a whole nother place and feeling that recognition.
yeah. Be right here, man.
I mean, hey, as you we talked as well, you being from London, originally from London, but now in the last 10, 12 years, making Paris, France your home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love it here.
Hey, and that again comes with time and realizing like, hey, there's people I met from New York, they're moving to Florida, they're moving to Texas because it's the opportunities that present themselves because a lot of times the people who are closest to us don't understand our impact until we're gone. And even guy here saying Mario B told me once that in New York, an artist can go to the top of the Empire State Building, jump down into a split, and you might get a clap. You know, he says in his hometown to get a clap ain't no joke because, hey, it's like that. But for you, making that journey to Paris, France, how has that been for you?
It wasn't so difficult because I've been working over in France for years, like from maybe the very first festival they had. And then even before that, somebody saw me dancing out in London and they asked me to come to Paris and give them private classes. I gave them, I don't know, like 16 hours of private classes for next to nothing. I didn't know better at the time.
Mhm.
But that opened doors for me. So I'd always been coming over to France and I love the language. And I just kept coming back. Any opportunity that I had, like all the early congresses in France,
Mhm.
I went to almost every one of them. And London was only like an hour flight away, and then they made the Eurostar, so it was even easier to get over here by train. So I just always had this love of Paris, and then
Mhm.
I moved over here. I was with a girl, and she gave me an ultimatum. She said, "If you don't move over here, we're finished." And I moved over, and we broke up after a year. So I got to keep Paris. Some people fight over the kids. I
Yeah.
kept Paris.
And see how it's been so beneficial to you currently and for me as well now diving into the current success or the most recent success before we get into our last segment is me telling you as well that one of my favorite routines you did was hybrid and I believe that was in Switzerland around 2019, 2020, right before I think it was February
It was
2020.
2020. That was we only performed that like 3 times,
Mm. And I
and
mean,
then the world got shut down.
seeing that routine was a clear example of, like you said, a hybrid. It was a cross meshing of all the styles you've learned, combining into this one routine, and it being performed with grace and style. And my question to you now is, seeing where we are in 2022, have you been able to kind of look back on everything you've been able to do and like really reflect on everything?
I actually have, because
Mhm.
I've got injuries over the last 2 years. I've got like a problem with my knee and stuff like that, and I'm thinking to like some of the routines that I performed. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that was so hard on my body, and I managed to do this. Like I would do routines, and I'd say to myself, like one of the other guys in the group, like the Paris group, the Paris
Mhm.
section of my performance group, was a jazz dancer and did capoeira and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I used to say to him, "Can you do this move?" I'd have a move in my mind, and he'd show me it, and he'd be able to do it perfectly. And I would give myself 2 weeks, and I would do it. But there was one move that I did, and not the routine that you're talking about, the routine just before that, I think,
Yeah.
where I had to do like this flip backwards, and I managed to learn how to do it in 2 weeks. And then with I think it was the first performance of that routine, I injured my back because I probably didn't warm up
Mhm.
properly. So for the whole year of performing that routine, I was performing injured and in pain,
Oh,
you
wow.
know. So it does kind of make you reflect on what we put our body through,
Yeah.
and actually what I've done as well, like how it's changed. I've always liked to think to myself that every routine I've done has always been something completely different than what I did before.
Yeah.
But I know there's always been an influence in there somewhere. So you could probably track without even knowing it's me in it. You could probably track something from the beginning to now. But I hope that I've inspired people. I
Mhm.
hope that I've let people know that you can do whatever.
Yeah.
There is a formula. You don't want to go overboard. You've just got to
Mhm.
find the right amount of craziness to put mix in with what everybody knows. And
I love that.
it's a balance. Sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less, but everything is possible.
Oh man, that just for a minute it sounded like a narrative from Morgan Freeman, something that I have to just like hold on because again, what you're saying is true because many people, I think too, as artists, our biggest critics are ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Before we go on stage, we're the ones already doubting everything of what could go wrong first. But in reality, the common denominator in all life's experiences is us. Because
Yeah.
again, from point A to point B or point C, it's us there at every step
Yeah.
of the road. And like you said, you being able to reflect on not just the inspiration or contributions you've given to many who are now inspired by you, like myself, but also realizing the good and the bad realizing because many
Yeah.
artists that I've known for so many years, still to this day, who are performing or even teaching, tell me privately about the lasting injuries that some of your greatest showcases and performances, everything that's happened in between that, and
Oh
all
my
the
God.
moments, all the things you don't know, all the things you don't see, all of the painful moments you have on stage, but you have to block it out with a smile. And
I think every performer goes on stage with some kind of injury. Everybody's like, you know what? Let's get this 3 minutes over and done with. It's three
yeah, oh
minutes,
my God. I mean,
but
many times that I've seen
it's not.
backstage.
It's not 3 minutes. It's more than that. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
it's
That's
true
what we
because
have to realize.
it's true. And I say this, it not just goes for the performance aspect, but also social dancing. Because I've had this conversation with artists and I've told them, as pros, organizers and promoters and artists all need to work together because we understand as headliners, highlighters, artists, whatever you call it, there is a responsibility you not just have on stage, but also to the community.
Yeah.
But also the community has a responsibility to the artist of understanding when it comes to social dancing, as you talk about injuries, the injuries you get on stage also happen social dancing. And
Oh
I think
yeah.
as well, people who want to dance with these artists have to understand your body is your money.
Oh
You
yeah.
understand that I've had to have these discussions and tell people engage with your community because again the community you're going to see years down the line your influence whether it was good or bad but also the community has to understand of when you connect with your artist, when the people you love or you pay this money to see, when you're dancing with them, have respect for them. Don't think because, for example, a female follow that you've loved watching for years, that you're gonna spin her 10 times and that's gonna make this dance amazing, especially if you don't do it right. You know,
I've heard that story many a time over the years.
so and this goes for not just the artists, but really the social dancers and the social goers. Understand that what you do socially dancing with another person who is maybe an artist that just performed, it's not about, this isn't a performance on a social dance floor. It's about having fun. It's about connecting. It's about learning. It's not about trying to do dips and tricks and flips. Leave that to the artists. I think again, and the more and more artists and the people who the attendees have better communication and connection,
Yeah.
our community is only going to grow further from that.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. And, all the instructors around the world, from like small groups of people to the big superstars that travel around the world, we are the influencers. So we need to lead the way.
Absolutely. And listen,
And
ladies,
share everything. Share what we need to share. Not everything, but share what we need to share.
yeah, you can't give them everything in one
No,
little
not
video.
everything. Not
Yeah,
everything.
I'm gonna give you a little bit, and then come to me, and then I'll give you a little bit more from there. And now I think it helps us transition beautifully to our last segment called the randoms, which is a segment I do about 5 to 10 questions that may deal with life and
All
everything in
right.
between. So we're gonna get into our first question here, and this should be interesting. So describe yourself in one word.
Um, Jesus Christ, that's a difficult one. I I don't know. I think in
Mhm.
whatever I'm doing, I think I am quite creative. So I can
Creative.
say creative. Yeah.
All right, I like that. I like that answer. All right, next one here, Leon. If you aren't dancing, what else would you be doing?
Um, I trained as an actor when I was a kid, and I always wanted to. I did a couple of TV shows when I was younger, so I would hope that I would have been acting, especially as like one of the girls that was in my acting class was
Yeah.
Miss Moneypenny on James Bond.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's so many actors that were in my class that are big superstars now. So I hope that I could have done the same thing.
Hey, I mean, hey, there's never say never. I say that, and hey, anything can happen. All right, next question. Give me a fun fact about Paris.
Fun fact about Paris: there's a lot of abandoned railway lines which
Mm,
they've given kind of back to nature, and they like people just walk, and you can like walk from where I live to just the edge of Paris. Like there's a big woods, a big forest, and you can walk. It's like about 6 kilometers,
mhm.
and I love doing that walk. So there's a
Hey,
lot of places like that that not everybody knows about, but yeah,
okay,
you
all
like to
right.
walk, come to Paris and discover it. Beautiful city.
Absolutely. I mean, some good food and some good nature. There you go. All right, next one here. If you can go to one country right now, where would it be?
I've you know I've been almost everywhere,
Mhm.
but there's still like a couple of places that I would like to see. I've never been to Colombia, so I would put Colombia on that list.
All right, definitely. I mean, Colombia is a beautiful country, so I definitely see that in your future. All right, this one here should be very interesting. I always call it the spicy question because
Uh-oh.
people have different answers. But what is your biggest pet peeves on the dance floor?
Um, all right, there's these guys that overprotect their dance partners.
Mhm.
Like they will kind of like put their arm up and push you out the way, even though you're not going to hit their dance partner or
Oh
something like
yes,
that.
yes.
You know those guys that they're putting on that show for
Mhm.
the person that they're dancing with. Like I had one of those the other day, and I looked at him. I'm like, you and that bothered me so much. Like I probably hounded him. I started making jokes about it on the dance floor every time I'd spin near him. And I said, "You okay? Everybody okay over here? All right, let's continue."
Hey, I mean, I guess people want to protect, but again, if there's spatial awareness,
I like
people,
that. I like that. Not a problem. It's
yeah,
very important. But there's certain guys that will just go overboard
yes, a force
just to
field.
put on what they're doing is nothing about really protecting their partner. It's about putting on a show that they are the big man,
Mm.
and look what I can do. Doesn't matter who this guy is. I can push him out the way because I'm the big man. I don't see that often, but it just stuck in my mind because I saw it the other day and I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
I mean, so in London, would you call them a wanker?
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, I'm trying to learn myself. I see some movies from London. I'm trying to learn the language. You know.
You
Hey,
need to watch. You need to watch Top Boy.
oh my God, Top Boy on Netflix. I think season 2 just came out. Trust me, I'll be looking into that. Since you told me that, I'll be watching that. All right, our next question here should be very interesting because many people know you as an instructor, choreographer, but
Oh.
also your life as a comedian. How has that been?
Well, I haven't done anything since before the lockdown over here.
Mm,
I need to get back into it. It's such a scary thing to do.
yeah, it's you
Oh
and
my,
a group of people,
oh
and
my God. And the thing is, the reason why I forced myself to go to the comedy clubs is because I always like to make jokes and entertain people during my classes. And
yeah.
then I've hosted over the years, like different congresses. So I like to be able to understand the how to control an audience, how to get them to laugh, how to get them to be quiet. I love that whole thing,
Mm,
in it kind of drives me. So I said, I'm going to force myself to go to a comedy club. And I did it. And I've done it a good few times. And the last time I actually did it, I had like this small blackout and it lasted like maybe a second. But
yeah.
it bothered me so much that I need to work. I need to make sure I go back and my material is perfect. So I plan to go back um probably this year.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it again. Now that things are open up back up again over here. So and it's only been recently things have opened back up. So I will definitely be doing it.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to that. All right, we're going to keep it back in London. So, can you give me your favorite meal in London? Or even so, if a person's visiting to London and they're like, hey, I want to get something to eat, where are you going to take them
But the thing is with English food, it's not that great. All right.
to?
But
Flavor. Okay.
but London has some of the most diverse restaurants in the
Yes.
whole of the world. You have everything. So you're guaranteed to find something that you like. There's roads of just restaurants of different. You'll get anything and everything
Mhm.
in London. So that's one thing. Like over in France, you're gonna get a lot of French food. Like
Yes.
every corner is French food. You're gonna get good French food, and then you'll have the odd Chinese restaurant.
Mhm.
You'll have something else, but there's not that much diversity. You'd have to really go out and look for where you want to go and eat. But in London, you can go down one high street and eat anything
Mm.
because the English food is not that great. But what I would definitely, anytime I go back to London, I always have to go and get some fish and chips, just
Ah,
because I grew up on that, and I need just a little touch of English food, just a little touch, just to remind me of where I came from, and then go back. But I wouldn't recommend it to somebody to eat every day. I wouldn't even recommend anybody to eat it once. It's just like,
hey, I mean that's as honest as it gets from a person there. But I'd say to this, it's interesting enough that we've been talking about food because I realized too, I guess through YouTube, I watch London foodies like Pengus Munch, who I guess is a big fried chicken type of culture in London. Like there's fried chicken
Um,
spots everywhere. I guess
yeah,
Morley's and
what it is like after people go out drinking, it's either a kebab or fried chicken. And those are
yeah.
the places that are open at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, the oil's been sitting there for the last 2 years. You know, you've got probably reminiscence of anything that has fallen in the deep fat fryer is gonna come out on your chicken. And that's what people eat with, with alcohol. You'll eat anything at that time in the morning. So that's why people eat that stuff.
I get you. I get you. Hey, I mean, teach his own. New York has it's definitely a variety of food as well. All right, next question right now is if you could be at one event, maybe it was an event from years past or even an event now, what event would that be?
Um, I would love to say two.
Hmm.
One would be Cannes. There was one particular year, Cannes in the south of France, that they had a
Yes.
festival where they had the stage. I went there a good few times, but there was this one particular year. They had the stage on the sand, and the stage, as you performed, you faced the sea.
Ooh.
And there was this like old boat just sailing past, like this old, I think it's like a tourist boat or something like that, but it's fashioned in, it's one of those old brands with the sails and whatever
Hmm.
else. And it was just sailing past. And I remember performing and just watching this boat. I didn't even notice the people down below watching me. I just thought
Yeah.
that was amazing. And also, there was a period of time that it's still going now, but there was a period of time that I loved about the Puerto Rican Congress.
Oh yeah.
That one there, the Old Sun one, whether it was in the Hilton
Hmm.
or the other hotel, wasn't so bad as well with the jacuzzis. And I love that. That just brings back good memories because I used to go there almost every year from like 2000, apart from one year.
Man.
That was my place to just go and hang out. I would just turn up. Like I would decide on the Thursday. I wasn't even booked to do anything. I would decide on the Thursday and book a ticket and go on Friday. That's how much I really appreciated that festival.
Man, that's beautiful. So Cairns and Puerto Rico are definitely great
Yeah.
places. All right, this one here should be very interesting. Last song of the night. You're at your favorite event, and you can only have one dance partner. Who is it?
Hmm. One dance partner. There's about I've had some amazing dances over the years with
Hmm.
different people, but there's always like one or two that kind of always comes to mind straight away, that like on the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
Like there's one dance I had with a girl from the UK who lives in London now, called Andrea. I always tell her about that dance. It was like an amazing dance that we had. It just like we danced afterwards, but nothing has ever been like that particular dance in
Yeah.
my mind. And I had one dance like that with Desiree.
Desiree
Uh,
Godsell?
yeah, I had one dance
Yes.
like that with her. Like I've danced with her afterwards, but it was this one particular dance that we had in New York in the last New York, New Jersey Congress organized by Nelson and Luis Segarra. And we were dancing on the carpet, and I wasn't giving any double spins or anything like that. We were just messing about and it was just flowing,
Mm.
And it's one of those dances I always remember. Yeah, as I said, I've had more, but those.
See? Yeah. I can just feel that emotion coming from you. It's great memories indeed. So now it actually helps us bring to our last question, and I feel with this question it kind of ties the whole conversation together. So for me, Leon, seeing your influence for so many years, I believe your contributions are endless, and it really has helped transform the dance world itself as well as many artists. But for you, if maybe years from now you're in a different phase in your life, how would you like to be remembered?
Like, For years I've been just thinking about this concept of partner dancing, and I've, I just the way to communicate with two different people
Hmm.
within a sequence of numbers: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight,
Yeah.
and I've been thinking about ways of doing this, and I come up with like and like names for it and stuff like that, and I would really I find it so easy
Yeah.
because I've thought about it so much. Find it so easy to talk about it and add it to what I do, what I teach, how I teach. This concept to make life so easy for both the follower and the leader. And I want everybody to at least know a part of what I've been thinking.
Mm.
You know, I don't want anybody to dance exactly like me, but I would love people to understand that concept, that thing that I've been transmitting for the last. It's probably only been like 10 years that I've really been thinking about it, and I want everybody to know it. I call it salsitsu
Yeah.
because I got inspired by my jujitsu instructor, and
Okay.
because salsa, jujitsu, salsitsu, but it's really it was inspired by that and my dance partner Dottie, who did like a contemporary, like high level contemporary
Yes.
dancer, and we would do like contact where we'd be leaning on each other and moving, and it would work out. It turned out into a lift and rolling on the floor
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So she really influenced me as well with that kind of thing, and I've put that into partner dancing. I've as I said, I've developed it. I have it up here in my mind,
Yeah.
and I give out pieces. But I would love for everybody to have a little piece of that, and hopefully that can be an influence in whatever they're doing, whatever partner dance, because it can work for anything really.
Yeah.
It's human body. It's the human body. We've got rules in the dance. What do we do?
We break
We can
them.
do it.
I mean, I'm not saying me, but some people break them. But again, like you said, your influence, your teachings, the education you brought forth. I think every instructor hopes that their teachings will last throughout time.
Yeah,
The teachings of Eddie Torres have transformed and evolved over the years. And teachings like yourself, you've been able to see those inspirations from other people. But of course, having people understand, just take, even if it's a little piece of information, keeping that with you to help you through your journey is something truly valuable.
yeah. That's what I want.
Absolutely. And honestly, I thank you again for doing this segment. I love doing this at the end. It really helps bring the whole conversations together in full circle. And now, really, we're at our conclusion of our talk today. And honestly, just being able to connect, to see the joy and a lot of the stuff we've talking about. For me, again, this platform is made for people like yourself because you guys, you people like Desiree, people like Super Mario, Frankie, and so many others that I've been witness to see on stages. I was at Boston Salsa Fest in 2005 with Dave Melendez. So,
Wow.
for me to actually say, like, I've seen you on stage when I was young, and now in 2022, being able to have this one on one, even though it's not physically, but just having this time to connect is so valuable because in our world, it's really like on to the next. And we don't have those times unless we're really close new friends in hotel rooms because we're just partying and having fun and
Yeah.
networking. But most of all, having this platform is special to me because being able to share your story is great because years from now people can look back on this and at least say they know a little bit more about Leon Rose than they did before. But at least before we do go, I'd love to know any last few words you have, but also some contact info on how people can reach you and see what you're up to next.
Well, listen, first of all, I want to just thank you for bringing me on your show, because I have been watching it
Thank
over
you.
how
Pleasure's
long
all
has it been
mine.
going?
I started in June of 2020 and
Okay.
already we're at like over 200 episodes. So
Yeah.
this train is keep rolling.
I understand the work that you put in, I can see it. This is what I was doing. I was studying how to put on live streams with like all the bells and the whistles on the side. I
Yeah.
understand what you've done. I tried to match you today with my camera,
Listen,
and
listen.
I messed. Something went wrong. My camera just died on me, and so I apologize for that. But
No, no,
listen, I appreciate what you've done, and keep up the good work. And there are a lot of stories to be told, and hopefully everybody will have their moment. And if anybody wants to find me, I'm so easy. It's Mr. Leon Rose on Facebook, on Instagram. I have TikTok, but I don't know what I'm doing with that. So
hey,
it's
it's a process, but you'll get there. Trust me.
MR Leon Rose, Mr. Leon Rose.
Absolutely, man. Honestly, Leon, again, thank you so much for your time. Everyone that has tuned in, that will be tuning in, this episode will be featured on Spotify very soon. Guys, we're over 200 episodes, and having Mr. Leon Rose here, all the way from Paris, representing as well London, is a dream come true. And again, from one artist to another, thank you for your contribution to the dance world. A person like myself has been inspired and continues to be inspired by people like you. Guys, you never know. I definitely want to have Mr. Leon Rose back on the platform, because trust me, this is just a glimpse into his life. There's so many more stories, and we can tell people about Congress life back in those days. We can tell people about, Saljitsu. We can tell people about it all. So, we'll definitely get more into it. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Leon, for everything. Guys, get ready. We have another episode upcoming this week. But this has been another amazing episode of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. I'm Diamond here with the one and only Leon Rose. Big shout out to Guy Lavelle. Yes, this has been an awesome interview in itself. Everyone stay safe.